And just when you thought I was gone forever, Nancy leaves the bird here again. Now, Freddie has been with us for a while. Freddie, and I can't tell you how much fun he's been. Peeps and Freddie, he's listen, all my life I wanted to be a movie star. I wanted to be on the Howard Stern show. I wanted to be on the E! Channel. And what do I get? I get one of those dumb, windy videos. Oh, I can't believe it. I want to be famous. This is what we've been going through for the last couple of days here. See, he has food. See what happens, though? He reaches up and steals it from Freddie. What do you think, Freddie? Freddie, are you going to let me touch you today? Freddie's a good boy. Freddie! 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 Show everybody what a good bird you are. That's it. And no eating to watch. We have work to do in the shop, Freddie. Hey! Hey! Work. You know what work is, Freddie? Yeah, I'll bet you do. I thought they wouldn't get along that well, but watch Chicky. Chicky steals his food. Chicky, that's so bad! Chicky, Chicky, that's your brother! Chicky, I don't believe you did that. That's terrible. Now, as long as the birds are leaving us alone, today, to start this off with a very common question, one that I've answered a million times, and it's good to know. This is useful information I think everybody can use. Retarder. This is an excellent question. And this exact question I answered on email about 60 times this week, and basically when I emailed it to Mike Scott in Texas, I thought this would be a good time to put this on the video. Retarder, Brodak retarder. Important to understand what retarder does. It slows down the drying process of the paint. It takes longer for paint to dry, dries much slower when you add retarder, even small amounts. That's important to understand. What the purpose of retarder is, it slows down the paint drying, and it allows moisture to escape and helps you to avoid that milky white film, especially on when you're shooting the clear. It's the most valuable asset you can have when you're shooting some clear. Here's the whole philosophy, and this works well. Actually, it's the same information would work well on if you're doing an acrylic lacquer finish, any other brand of dope, or Brodak dope. Now, it slows down the drying. If you don't need to use it, you don't want to use it. In the best of all worlds, you wouldn't need it. Except if you live in Jersey, or you want to paint in the winter, or when it's raining out, well. And when you do have to use it, you want to use as little as possible to do the job. In fact, we're going to put some retarder on his bird in 1 minute. Shut up! God, he thinks he's a movie star. What typically happens is somebody will get, like Mike Scott did, of course, get to a day they're going to shoot some clear. Well, you try to pick a day. Let's see, the best of all worlds would be pick a day that there's no humidity in the air, very little humidity. Yeah, that almost never happens. The weather actually knows when you're ready to shoot clear, and it increases the humidity. So there's a way that we've found to hopefully circumvent this. What I do is a half hour before I'm actually planning on painting. If I'm going to paint, let's say at 10 o'clock, at 9:30, I'll mix up a batch of clear, half thinner roughly. Go out and shoot either cowling, a flap, an elevator, a wheel pant, something that's small and inconspicuous, preferably the bottom. Always the bottom first. Give that 30 minutes. If you give it 30 minutes to dry, and it dries without a haze or a milky fogging, you're all set. You go right ahead and paint the plane. Bingo. Happens if it does get foggy? Well, good thing you didn't do the whole plane, right? So within 30 minutes it should be dry. Then I want to take the batch of material. Now let's just say for right now it's half clear, it's half thinner, and I want to add 10% retarder. Roughly. If you do 11, if you do 15 even, maybe it won't be a problem. But you don't want to add 50%. You want to try about 10% to start with. So now you put that back in a spray gun and shoot the same parts. It should kill whatever fogginess is already in there because it'll slow down. In other words, if 2 minutes into this, you see the fog coming on, go right down, put the retarder in the paint, go out and spray the same part, and you'll probably escape not having to deal with sanding off the paint because it'll soften the paint and let the paint dry. Say, hey, the Nats is tomorrow, Brodak's a big contest, and you really want to paint today. Well, you could do the same thing if it fogs up with 10%. Put another 10%, would give you a total of 20% retarder. The problem is I don't recommend going more than 10 or 20% for the simple reason. When paint dries that slow, what happens is the thinner tends to go down into the finish before it dries out and gasses off. When you put the thinner on the paint with retarder, it's going down into the finish as well as up. So you really don't want to, you never want to go over a canopy with retarder. That's a no-no. You really don't want to go over any electrosets, ink lines that are fresh. You want to get a dry coat of clear on them hopefully first. But having this, the option of having retarder the day you shoot your clear, boy does that save you. And as many times, especially people in Florida, a couple of my friends in Louisiana, where they really suffer from humidity all the time. We get humidity about 80% of the time up here, but other things that can help. Things that'll help. Let's say the first thing, you want to slow the paint drying down. So if you started the original mix with 50-50, you could go to a little more thinner where it would be 45 and 55, 55 being the thinner. Well, a little more thinner will slow down the paint drying. The thinner the paint is, typically it'll take a little longer. So that'll help if you're dealing with high humidity, a little extra thinner. Again, you don't want to go overboard on this because anything that'll slow the paint drying helps. You also, another thing that helps tremendously, if you can get a dehumidifier. Now, I have one. I almost never use it. I just wait for a better day or paint outside. But in times that I've wanted to paint in the garage, dehumidifier. Just run the dehumidifier the night before. That's a big help. Now, there's another thing. This is funny. Now, I know this is hard to believe, but I've heard of this. Here's a guy. This is really funny. This is his garage, and he's got the dehumidifier in the garage. Okay, there's the dehumidifier. This is so bad that the compressor is outside. Well, that doesn't work either. You want to have the compressor right next to the dehumidifier in a confined area. I won't mention Jeff's name because I know he'll be mad if I do, but if you dehumidify all the air in your garage, your shop, or your basement, or your patio, you want the compressor where it's picking up the air to be in that environment. An air conditioner will help to some degree. What an air conditioner does by lowering the temperature, it lets the paint dry slower. Now, I know even John Brodak has had days that he's had to use retarder. I'm sure he has a dehumidifier because I think I saw one when we were out at his contest. But air conditioners in the summer, dehumidifiers, a little extra thinner, and then you have the last resort. And this is, at the end of all this, if you're still having a problem, you do that retarder test that I did right at the beginning of this, and that should help. That should help get you through. And as the last thing, if all else fails, wait for a better day, or some equivalent of waiting for a better day. Try to find somebody who has, in Rich Jacobone's case, he has a friend that has a body shop that when the work day is over, he allows him to use his spray booth. There's always a way around the humidity problem. And if you know what the choices are, I think this is kind of good information, and I try to do this on as many videos as possible when an appropriate question comes to mind. So I hope this helps everybody get a little grip on it. Now in today's mail, this is our friend Jim Varno. He lives up in the cold water part of Michigan. Anyway, of course this is a Cardinal that he's built, and he was looking for some Super Tiger 60 parts. I hope that we've helped him acquire those parts, because it's harder and harder to get these Tiger parts. I think in his case it's worth keeping a Super Tiger 60 alive. This is a great flying plane. We've had it on video before. We want to thank Jim a whole lot. We'll pass this on to Stunt News. Now, for all the people that followed along with the whole B-25 series of videos, you know that we dedicated this plane. It's a kind of a tribute to the Tuskegee Airmen who did fly B-25s in World War II, one of 4 types they flew. And we did see a monument to them, not a monument, I guess a little tribute to them down at where we held our Model Plane Club meetings. But in today's paper, let me show you this. Our local paper, of course, today's date. And they have a story about the Tuskegee Airmen, and several of them live in our area. Some of them actually live in Rutherford. Now, I was fortunate enough when I was making a B-25 to speak to one of the gentlemen, and they were just the nicest people. They have reunions all over the country. I think the next one is in Virginia. But they had some war pictures here. This is from today's paper again. They flew P-40s, they flew P-51s, and they did fly B-25s and Thunderbolts too. Now it's just hard to believe that you know, as Americans, this is, I guess, a chapter in our history that I like to learn anytime I get a chance to read up on it. February is Black History Month, and certainly they owe a tribute of thanks to me. I enjoy living in this country. I enjoy the freedom, and in part to almost all the people, and all of the people, not almost, that made sacrifices in World War II and actually in all wars. We build the A-26 and work on it, and as we hopefully get a lot of seasons more out of our B-25, we'll be in a small way thanking the Tuskegee Airmen. Now, one of today's projects, and we're going to try to combine this with part of Dave Midgley's project. This is from Joe Grasso. Joe Grasso is making some vintage kits. This is going to be for a P-40, and this is a plug that he sent me. Actually did a real nice job on it. I'm going to try to make a rubber mold for this today. That's one of the projects, and I'm going to try to, at the same time I'm doing that, I'm actually going to make the mold for 2 of these in one day, I hope. This is the one for Dave Midgley's carbon fiber Cardinal. So what we'll try to do, and by the way, let's get his name and address for anybody that would like to contact him concerning getting some kits, or a list of what he offers. Very soon you'll be able to buy these P-40 cowls. Anyway, now even though I've written about this in Stunt News several times, actually more than once, I always get people asking me, gee whiz, do you have a video on how to make a cowl? Well, it doesn't absorb a whole video, but we'll try to run through this quickly and try not to leave out any steps for anybody that is anticipating. We're going to be doing a cowl for Les's ship, of course, and for our A-26 we already have the cowl plug. Actually, we have about, I looked in the tub the other day, about 30 different plugs for cowling, so we're accumulating, and wheel pants, of course, and exhausts, and whatever. Now, in the past, we've made these various Cardinal cowls, Nobler cowls. We even have the cowl that Elliott Scott made for the small Strega, the big Strega, the Nobler. So we do have an extensive little back. Oh, here's Dave's old cowling. Now you can see how much different this is because the fuselage is thinner. A carbon fiber fuselage is narrow and thinner, using a thinner spinner. Hey, that's cool. And one of his other cowls that had 1 scoop. So we have quite a few to choose from for anybody that's looking to do this. But most people The advantage is that this is such an easy thing to do. Most people would want to make their own mold, or even if they wanted me to make the mold, I charge $30 to make the mold. That basically covers a pound of molding rubber. And then you can have an unlimited supply of your own cowlings. Laying up the cowlings is relatively easy. So just follow through with us. This is how we're going to do. We're going to add one to our list. We're actually going to add two to our list of cowls that are available today. So the obvious question is, why would you want to have a composite cowl, either carbon fiber or e-glass? What would be the reason? What would be the advantages? Almost everybody I know agrees that when even people that have done it the first time get it to come out lighter than its balsa wood similar part. Now you definitely can make it quicker. Quicker being, you carve this piece of wood and put a finish on it. You would have to carve the piece of wood and you would have to put the finish on a wooden cowl. The difference is, this will never absorb oil, of course. The difference is, when you go to make the part, laying up the part is roughly 15 minutes instead of hollow and hollow and hollow, and you know how many times I went through. Or you've cut the hole for the exhaust. It's too big. I gotta start patch it. Well, with a composite part, you just make another part and keep the one. Let's say another advantage, and it's an advantage that a person that buys this kit, they want to put a side exhaust engine and a road jet. Another person wants a rear exhaust. Well, you don't want to have that hole in the side. So when you're making a model, you can make pretty much two cowls. The extra cowls are going to take about 15-20 minutes to make. And just finish both of them. Paint them at the same time. Paint them if the plane has a stripe. You'll have a side exhaust cowl, a rear exhaust cowl. That's another advantage. Another big advantage, I think, is the biggest advantage of all, is as time goes by, never absorbs oil. If you have a terrible crash where the part is demolished and you can't fix it, you have the plug, and 15 minutes later you have a new cowl. And the cowl is the single part on the plane that wears out first. It's the first part that always wears out. So you have this replaceability, this advantage that it's never going to absorb oil. There are a lot of good reasons to consider doing a cowl like this. And we've done them now about 8 years, I think. And we've really had good luck with them. We've never had one that we were disappointed in. But one of the other, it's easy to make. Now, it wasn't easy the first time I went to make one of these. If you look at the article I wrote in Stunt News on the Spitfire, by the time we had gotten to that level, these were coming out of the mold beautifully. But in the beginning, it was difficult. It was difficult if you go back to the Spitfire videos. We were trying to use molding plaster, which you can use. We were making hard mold cowls. You can do that too, but it gets labor intensive, and you always run the risk. You run the risk that the part is in there and you can't get it out without destroying the mold, and sometimes the mold and the part. It's called a catastrophic lockup. But we have no risk of doing that, because what we're going to do is we're going to do this the real easy way. We're going to make the mold out of molding rubber. And that's the secret to making this, that everybody in the world can do this, whether you're using, and I will pass this video on to several of the other people I know already. And most people do it on the first shot. Not many people can't do this. Tom Hampshire had his come out on the first shot. Mike Kajeski's on the first shot. I know Alan Ressinger does molded parts. There's a list that's too long. Howard Rush made parts. This is a common technology now that should be part of everybody's molding, modeling skills. And it's very easy to do. It's inexpensive. The amount of rubber that we need to make the mold is about $30. The price might have gone up a few dollars, or it may be cheaper if you buy it somewhere outside the New York area. Molding rubber is about $30 a pound around here. The thing that'll save you the most time of all, the most energy, the most money, is if you watch the video, go step by step. I'll try not to leave out any steps. You pretty much should be able to do this on the first shot. Now, it's a little bit different. If you want to make a tune pipe, you need a mold that basically costs $300 to $600. You need machining work. The material's expensive. You need to buy maybe $500 worth of material before you'll ever be able to go into production or make one. So it's really cost ineffective. What's different about this project
If you do it step by step, you can buy 1 pound of molding rubber from Smooth On, and you're in business. You're ready. Everything else that you need is probably going to be in your shop. The only other thing it might be, some people want to finish this with auto primer. It's best, see, Dave did his with Brodak primer, which is certainly fine. But the shinier and smoother you can make this surface, the nicer the part that's going to come out, and the easier it'll release. It'll release very easily that way. So, and this one looks fine, by the way. So what we're going to do, just follow along step by step, and if you do one, send me a picture so I can put it in my album. And when we made the Typhoon, the cowl was very complex, but we basically used the same technology. It's the same technology. Well, actually, the technology for doing a lot of the little molded exhaust parts is very similar. We've made spinners, we've made cowls. These were hard mold cowls, but once you get started with this, it's kind of, it draws you in. It's something it adds a skill to your modeling that you right away, the first thing you try to do is look around for other things you can mold because it's so nice and easy. Now this plane has the whole bottom made out of one piece of carbon fiber. Even though it's a wooden fuselage, it has these little composite parts. And I find every time I can make one more part out of composite, the overall plane gets a little lighter, a little stronger. Certainly the life of the plane gets better, the same way carbon props seem to last a lot longer than wood ones. Parts that we make all the time. These are a good selling part. They fit on basically all stunt ships. One of the things you can add to even to a profile model. But if you're so inclined and you're willing to invest a few hours of time, watch the video. If you have a problem, give me a call. We'll try to work it out. If you really don't want to make the mold, make the plug just as Joe has done and send me the plug and I'll make the mold for the cost of the rubber. And I'll even make the composite part if you want. Composite parts are $30 a piece. The molds are typically about $30 to $50 depending on how much rubber there is involved. We use Smooth On Mold Max, and we use two different variants of it. It's available in gallon cans from Smooth On. Now these people are really special. You can look at their website, of course. You can phone them at 610-252-5800. Talk to their tech person. Get their catalog. That would be step one. And get a 1 pound molding rubber. Mold Max 30 is a good one to start with. This is the kicker for the Mold Max. The material itself, now we buy 10 pounds at a time. It gets mixed in a 10-to-1 ratio. And we'll show all this on the video. First we're going to set up, we're going to turn the plug into a part that's ready to pour the rubber on. Pretend this is your custom part. The first thing you want to do is we want to mount this to a base plate. We have to mount it in a way that we can make a box around it and pour our molding rubber. Now the nice thing about Mold Max 30, it's a silicone rubber, means you don't need any release agent. If you make a hard mold, a plaster mold, you need PVA, you need wax, you need all kind of things to get the part out. Using silicone molding rubber, you don't need any of that. So it makes it, for a modeler, it makes it very easy, very quick, very efficient to do that. Now, if you look at the part, you want to mount it so that we have at least 1/4 of an inch in every dimension, including the top. So we need to go to the scrap box and find a piece of balsa wood or plywood or something that we can mount this to. Also, at this point in time, if you had a part like a Nobler cowl that had a different shaped bottom, it would make the mold more complex. This is going to be a relatively simple one, in fact, and it's always nice to design a part that you have one flat surface, same as Dave has done, one flat parting line. A lot of reasons. The biggest reason is when you go to mount the part, you can mount the part and you always mold a cowl, put put the mounts in place, and then shape the fuselage to the cowl. You don't shape the cowl to the fuselage. You do it in reverse of what you would normally think. Anyway, he's already got this mounted to a base plate. We don't have to worry about that. But you do need some kind of a finish on it. You have a piece of scrap balsa, and we can basically just make sure we have at least 1/4 of an inch in every dimension. That means we can go to about here. And that'll become our base plate. Now we can kind of center this out and just put a thin bead of Rodak thin CA around the whole perimeter. That'll do two things. It'll help seal so the molding rubber won't go underneath, and it'll leave us a mark on the molded part that we can sand and grind to as a reference point. And we don't want to use any kicker on this because I don't want it to turn into that popcorn-like material that it sometimes does. And once that kicks, then I just need to build a box that's big enough so that I even have 1/4 of an inch up top. Now we like to keep things relatively square just to make the box easier to make and easier to get the corners nice. An easy way to do that is just use an ordinary draftsman's T-square. This is a good way to use up some of the scrap wood that we all have. And just wait till that CA kicks off and we'll make the other 3 sides of the box. We made this really oversized. I just need to cover this so the whole part is covered by at least 1/4 of an inch of rubber. Each time I add a side, I make sure everything is as square as possible. It just makes, really not necessarily, makes the mold a lot nicer. Now also, when we lay this down, we can't lay it on an angle because the molding rubber will dry at an angle. We'd like to keep it relatively level because we're going to work on this mold upside down. And that'll keep anything that drips and drools from rolling into the corner at the time that we're doing the layup. So keeping everything nice and square is a good idea at this point in time. Choices you have here, you want to make this that when you pour the molding rubber in, it doesn't leak out the corners. So one of the ways you can do it, you can seal it with thin CA, and that's okay. That's an okay way to do it. What I've done in the past when I didn't want to do this, you can simply put duct tape around it. Duct tape will keep it out, but this will make it a little bit neater, a little more workmanlike. Now that's only to seal it up, so I don't have any of the molding rubber leaking out when I pour the molding rubber. And that's pretty much ready to pour. Now I'll do the same thing. I'll make a similar box to the part that Dave has. And then what I'll do is I'll mix the molding rubber all at once and pour both of them at one time. At the scale, anything that says in molding language, PBW means parts by weight. So what we do is weigh a cup, of course, 15. Then we need to fill it with molding rubber. I'm expecting sometime today, Rich Jacobone's going to drop off his Stuka cowl too, which will even be better. Then we can make 3 at once. Now, the old material that this replaces, 910 and 912, whenever you would take the lid off, if you don't use it for a couple of weeks, you would need to stir it up. What I've noticed is different about Mold Max 30. They have shake well on the accelerator, and that's, of course, one thing that you want to do. But it used to be that you'd have to take the tub of 910 or 912 and you'd be stirring. It took forever to do that. Well, now you don't have to do that. But you do have to shake the kicker. Now, what I like to do, pour it slowly. You can really get caught in a strange thing here where you can't stop it from moving. I would suggest you always use rubber gloves, of course. You don't want to make any air bubbles. One of the things you'd like to avoid in any using of molding products, molding rubber especially, is that thing of having air bubbles to deal with. And if you do have them, you want to have as few as possible. Now, it would really be nice if Rich shows up today. You see how I'm pouring this? Now, when you get to where you think it's going to be the end, and of course you never know where that part can be, it's better to make several small batches than one giant batch. It gives you more working time, even though this material there's plenty of working time. I always like to keep the shop cool on days that I'm going to do this. Here we go. Now it's going to get real sloppy. Remember, we're doing a 10-to-1 ratio. I wanted to show this because this is one of the things. In the beginning, I was scooping it out with a little spoon, and I'd say, wow, how can people get this done? You know, it just gets right to the end. We're going to need more than one batch, needless to say. Now I want to weigh this, deduct the 15 for the cup, which is going to be probably about 300. Ooh, 400. You got a full cup there. Okay, so we're at 370. We're at 370, which means we need minus the 15, which would make it 355. It means we're going to need 33 and a half. And what that'll do, that'll give us the amount. Now, as soon as we pour the accelerator in here and the scale zeroes out, we know we have the mix exact. Again, this can get to be another one of these. If you pour too much, you can really scoop it off easily, but I'll show you my little trick for pouring it in. I pour most of it. As soon as I see the scale move, yep, there it goes. Just the slightest bit over, maybe by a half a gram. In fact, let's see what it is, a half a gram or so. Half a gram, yeah, half a gram isn't going to matter. Now that I have this set up, now the hard part. This is the part that, in the beginning, I was getting frustrated because I couldn't get this step down easily. Is if you take this and use an egg beater or an electric drill, you'll put so much air into it, you'll have an epidemic of air bubbles. Instead, take 2 or 3 extra minutes. Once this looks, and let's look at what this looks like. It's still liquidy. It takes about 2 minutes, and I'll do this off camera. It takes about 2 minutes to turn this into where it looks mixed. And once it is mixed, mix it 2 minutes more, nice and slow. That's the key to having a good mold. This is what it looks like, and you can see it just takes time. Go around the edges, around the corners. After about 2 minutes, it'll turn into a light blue mix, and then once you think it's mixed, once you're convinced it's mixed, mix it 2 minutes more. It looks like, but you can see there's still little threads of where it's white. I don't know if you can see that. And you need to get around the corners and edges. Probably the biggest single thing that in the beginning, I did not have good luck in the beginning figuring out molding rubber. I was using a motion that was just too quick, ingesting all kinds of air into it. And I had an awful time getting rid of the air bubbles. Well, the trick is just to have patience right at this point in the operation. That'd be wonderful if we can get Rich's Stuka Cal and get 3 of these cooking at the same time. That'll really be nice. Then I can mold 3 at a time. We finally got the thing with Richard Oliver under production. And those pipes, by the way, they are really nice. That's become an everyday project here in the molding shop. It just takes time. This is, see, now you see the big air bubble? I just was going a little bit too fast. And when it looks like right now, it looks like it's pretty well mixed, I'll do it off camera. I'm just going to mix it another 2 minutes. Nice and slow and steady. Trick, even though we've mixed it as slow as possible, you can see there's still air bubbles. I try to let most of them rise to the surface. And what I want to do with the mold, I want to pour it in all the corners first. If you did this, if you just dump this right in, those air bubbles are never going to come out. So the idea is to get at the lowest point first, if possible, and get this to go right down into all the corners. And if you do this, you minimize the chance that right on the mold itself you're going to have a giant air bubble. In which case then you need to repair each part or put a little repair in it. But if you get it in all the corners, and let's look at this real quick here. That's what I'm trying to do. Now I'm trying to work it around in all the corners. And I can even take my little Allen wrench and kind of poke it down in all the corners. Because that's where it's actually, we don't care about the edges of the mold. It's only the part right up where the part itself is that I don't want to have an air bubble if possible. Now what I want to do is now that I have the base, I want to pour some on top of the plug and try to get it to drip down and minimize the amount of stuff. Minimize any chance that we're going to get a big blob of air. And it took me several times to really figure this out where I could minimize that air in some of the bigger molds especially. Because remember, if a little mold like this, you're only using $30, $40 worth of rubber to most. What happens in a big mold, you're using a lot of material. Like in our wing molds, that's hundreds of dollars of material, and you really don't want to have a problem with that if possible. Okay, now that would be the second step. And you can see what I've done is just cover the part, and now I'm going to work it down, let it drip in all the corners and edges and angles. Use the little probe if you have to. You can try to break some of the air bubbles if possible. That'll always be a help. It's the air bubbles that right now are your enemy. Now, there's a lot of ways to minimize the air bubbles. You can use what would be an appropriate thing to, like a jigsaw. I've heard that that's a good way to do it. George Venturini made a little jig, like an ultrasonic thing he could put his molding rubber in, and that kind of minimized it. But these are all got complex. It's easier just to stir it slowly. Again, I'm trying to keep the procedures that we're using for this over the last, say, 7 years. I've tried to make them more simple and more doable, not more complex. Now here, this is one of them. This is one, if you skip this, boy, does it become a problem. Now, because when we do Les's playing, when he gets back to working at the shop, one of the things we're going to be making is new wheel pant molds. He wants to have a very long, pointy set of wheel pants, and we'll probably have them for sale at some point in time. We'll also have the cowl to his plane that should become one of the standards. We have all the cardinals and all the little stragas and things like that. But again, if you want a custom one, we can always, like Rich Jacobone is going to be over here with his Stuka, and that's a very large mold. That's one we're going to have to work on. And I'm sure Rich did a good job of prepping it. Last time I saw it, it looked pretty neat. He's been working on it since he was 10 years old, I think. But see how I'm just laying this in little by little, one little step at a time. And if we don't have enough that we're covering the highest part by 1/4 of an inch, we'll just mix another batch. It looks like we're going to need a little more. And it's always at the bottom, by the way, that, let me show this up close. This is important. Now, if you look in there, what you see is, because we're at the bottom, there's always some rubber that isn't totally stirred. So even though this is in the mold, we're going to try to stir that up around the edges. You don't want any I call it marbleizing, those white streaks that are in there. And what that means is I didn't get every single drop down at the bottom to be homogenized. Even though this will take a few minutes, this is worth doing. Because once you get this part done, making the part is easy. This is the hard part. Actually laying up the part with the resin and the cloth or the carbon, relatively easy. And every time I see an air bubble, I'll just poke it like that. I'll babysit this for 15 minutes or so. Happens after this sits for about another 10 minutes, you see all the air bubbles are coming to the surface. You can use a hair dryer and just warm this a little bit. That seems to help. I wouldn't make it too hot. Warm is fine. Now see, we still need to get some more rubber up around the top here. So I'm going to mix a second batch. While I'm waiting, I'm going to poke and probe all these air bubbles out. So we want to get this covered. We used one batch up already. We're going to need a second batch for this mold. What we have left over from pouring this batch, we'll pour into this mold, and then if Rich gets here later today, we'll use whatever's still left over into the third cal. So hopefully by the end of the day we'll have 3 of these. Okay, the first 2 molds are poured. They're going to sit, those air bubbles will just keep coming up for the next 24 hours. But we have our guest cowling maker here. Let's see this Stuka cowl. Oh, that looks nice, Rich. Oh, that's going to be a good one. Now, he's put a finish on that. That looks real nice. What we're going to have to do, the first thing, is make the appropriate box. And then we'll do most of it exactly the same. We used a Mold Max rubber. This that piece of plastic we got for Brian? That's perfect.
That's what you gave me.
All right, now all we got to do is make a box now, and this will be ready to go. Same as the other one, no difference. You got the back sealed off. You got a little lip going out. That'll be fine. Boy, is that going to be easier than carving a cowling next year. Holy mackerel. Forget about it.
Whoever wants a cowl now.
You got canopies too. Now let's make sure people know.
Well,
you got canopies.
They have to come to you. I don't want to be in
what a liar. Where are the canopies?
The canopies,
You
Midget's
should have
got
brought one. Okay, Midget's got the mold for the canopies. Okay.
So you're going to have the mold for the cowl. Anybody that wants to.
So anybody except Matt Newman. He's not helping Matt Newman at all.
Matt Newman.
Tell me about Matt Newman does not get a free cowling.
No free cowl.
Oh, boo. Boy, you really have some. Chicky, do you want a cowling? Chicky, he's gonna mold you. Hey!
There we go. How you doing, guy?
You're a sick puppy. Anyway, the key thing here is Rich several times thought it was done and put a little more finish on it, but that feels nice.
Good.
That'll be a real nice mold.
Now, if you need to do anything to it, other than what I've done,
I'm gonna do it right now while you're standing here.
By all means, feel free to do it because you are the head robber.
No, this will be perfect. And when we sell these to Matt Newman, we're going to sell them for $100 a piece.
We'll give him a discount.
No, we'll give him
a 10% discount.
The Stuka stunt, yeah.
He owns Stuka stunt.
Stuka stunt discount. Quiet, Chickadooly. We did on Rich's, we put a block up in the front just to save some of the molding rubber. Now this is going to be a little more difficult. We're going to have to try to pack it in around all the corners and edges. This is going to be a little more labor intensive. Probably, I would guess, three cups of rubber for this one. But Rich is going to get a lesson in mixing rubber now. Get the gloves on, baby. Wait, get used to the gloves on your hands. Your hands are worse than, show me your hands. They're worse. Look at his hands. Look, from not wearing gloves. See, he's a macho man. See, now my hands, smooth as silk.
Like a baby's butt.
Why? We don't talk about that. Oh, how easy it is to, even Rich Jacobone can make a carbon fiber cowling. Even Rich. Just stir it slow. When you think it's stirred, give it another 2 minutes, and then we're going to need about 3 mixes. We'll start pouring one drop at a time, one cupful at a time. Well, it took 4, and it's probably going to take 5 to cover it. It's a pretty big mold. You just got to let each mix, see it's sinking in there. Just let each one be patient, get the last little bit out. Be ready for the last batch now. You got one more batch going to this. Okay, so there it is. What did it take, 5 or 6 mixes?
5.
It almost took 10 pounds of rubber to make that mold. Wow. Anyway, now that we're done with this has to sit 48 hours. We have the other ones over on the bench. All of these will sit. In the meantime, I'll run off another batch of pipes for Richard Oliver. We got pipes on the table. We got pipes on the TV. We got pipes in the back room. There's pipes. Turned into a pipe factory here.
Molds and pipes.
Molds and pipes. And anyway, this was good that Rich got a little hands-on experience. And believe me, if Rich can do it, Chickadooley can do it too.
Thanks a lot.
Couple of days I've been making a special part that'll control all the switches for the train motor. It's dry already, and so I've made a carbon fiber control panel. We'll see what that looks like tomorrow. That should dry overnight. Special day. It's Rob's birthday. It's Craig's birthday. How old are you guys going to be? You guys together aren't as old as I am, are you?
No, we're not.
You're 26?
27, 58.
58. 58.
27, we're combined, your age.
So you two are combined. So that means I'm as smart as both of you guys combined, or just as old as both of you guys? Oh, Freddie Fuquato's up here. Freddie's back. Freddie. It's a birthday, Freddie. Freddie, your brother's down there all alone in the shop. We're having a birthday party for Fred. Look, he scratches his ears. Freddie, do you love me? Do you love me? He bites. What he does when I torture him, Melissa, then he bites you.
Hey.
Freddie Fuquato. That's where you touch his tail. Freddie. Freddie. Hey! No biting, Wendy. Oh, he's got you good now. I torture him. All right, come on, we're having a birthday party. This 26 years ago, no, 25 years. This is Craig when he was, how old is he? 2. So it's 20.
25 years ago.
Now look what he grew into. Oh, let me see the picture. Michelle, put it by his face. Put it by his face so we can see the before and after. If you do drugs, this is what could happen to you.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay.
This is your brain on drugs. This is your brain without drugs.
I'm gonna.
Birthday to you.
He does. He's a ham.
He loves the camera.
Oh,
He's eating 2 video cameras already.
Hi, Freddie.
Freddie, we hate babysitting you. We get sick of babysitting you.
You're cute. Oh, he's
Oh, he doesn't
nuzzling.
like you.
He's
Oh, he's-
nuzzling.
He likes my hair.
He likes me. Watch him puff up.
He's nuzzling.
gets puffy.
He's nuzzling. Oh, that's
He
cute.
knows if he bites me, he's in big trouble. I'll CA his mouth shut.
Baby.
That's not funny, Freddie.
Oh, he's
I'll
nuzzling.
pull your nose. Freddie Fuquato.
You're cute. You're cute.
You. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Craig and Rob. Happy birthday. You realize that combined age is what I am. Hey, okay, let's eat, baby.
Just make sure you don't split them together. Big what? Yay!
Hey! Now you would think by now these 2 guys would be friends. What's that all about? Hey! 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 Yeah. You don't bite me. He knows I have birthday cake in my mouth. Chicky! Chicky, you're gonna get it. See, he just doesn't appreciate. You don't appreciate anything. You're like that Freddie. Calm down. We're going back to work. It's enough. Enough of you guys. Now, this is an interview that our daughter Stacy has been on national TV 13 times this month. on one of the local channels, a little interview of her playing her music. I won't put this whole thing on tape. We get to get back to modeling, but it's been fun seeing her have some success.
Yeah, I spent a semester in London, and I think it was 20 pounds less weight from my
Now today, we have the moles have cured, of course. It's a question of, we know we want to try to save the plug. We don't need the box though, so we can just get in here like peeling a banana and get rid of this wood. We had a great birthday. Was that a good party yesterday, Karen?
Excellent.
Karen always makes good parties, and we hope you don't mind, or that you enjoy actually sharing them with us. A lot of times you can pull it out without, nope, this one's going to require. Again, you can just take your time and one piece at a time. Sometimes this gets frustrating. A lot of times you can get in this way and just get a whole piece to come. Oh, here we go. As I say it. We should be closing in on having this. Here it comes on this side. And we got 3 of these to do today, so I'm going to separate this as much as I can. In fact, if I have to, I'll just take the bottom piece right off. There we go. Split it this way. I wanted to show this on tape because one of the trickier things. Now my wife Karen is a very happy woman because she's going to get a cedar closet this weekend. Mike Kajeski's building her a cedar closet, and we're going to get rid of the old closet where the train layout is, so we can have a more environmentally friendly train layout. Here we go. That's what and there's the mold. A little piece of schmutz in there. Now we had 3 of these. I'll do the other ones off camera, and then we'll be ready to start a layup. Hey, what I want to do, I want to make a test layup on this. I guess we'll do the P40 cal first. It's always a good idea to get, now we have some E-glass. This is 4-ounce E-glass. Usually a cowling this size, you need 2 layers of 4-ounce or the equivalent to that. So what I want to do is make up a bunch of little pieces like this. If you try to do this in one piece, you wind up getting 1,000 wrinkles. If you try to use carbon fiber on a really curved thing, it bunches up in the corners. So the easiest way is to make pie slices and just let them overlap. And this looks like this is going to be exactly what we want here. I always cut, and it's a good idea, cut 10 times more than you think you need, because once you have the gloves on and you're doing a layup, and you need one more piece, you got to get the scissors messy, and you get stuff like this that sticks on the cloth. Okay, so we got plenty of cloth. This sits in here real nice. This should be a real nice layup. Okay, now the only other problem we have here, let me show this up close. If you look inside, where there's a corner or an edge, we need to put a little bit of stuff called Cabasil. Cabasil mixes with epoxy and makes a paste. When you paint that into a corner, what happens, the cloth always wants to pull away from the corner. You leave bubbles and little edges. The Cabasil fills that in, and then you can get a little bit of a better corner where there's a corner or an edge, no matter what shape the mold is. And this turned out to be a nice little mold. This is going to be for Joe Grasso. Trick that I do, I always put a little bit of tape on the end of the little mixing brush, because what happens, it's really a razor blade, and it cuts the gloves, and then you wind up getting this horrible epoxy on your hands, and it takes forever. Now, if you ever do get epoxy on your hands, any of these, even West systems, we're going to use West on this, 105, you get epoxy on your hands. You never use thinner, you never use acetone. You get soap, hot soapy water to get it off. But the best thing is always wear rubber gloves. Now, if this were a mold, a hard mold, like we're going to have on Dave Midgley's fuselage on an upcoming video, what we would want to have is a release agent, PVA, wax, whatever. Because this is a silicone rubber, what you'll see is it'll release with no release agent at all, or we can just spray in one coat of the silicone, the universal release agent. As the mold gets older, after about 30 pulls, you need that silicone release agent, but for the first one, it'll come right out. West Systems 105 with a 206 slow hardener. What we want to do is, when we think this is mixed, mix it another 2 minutes. That's one of the things that can plague somebody trying to make their first couple of molds. They're rushing. They know they only have 15 minutes to do this layup, so they, instead of having 14 good minutes, they have 14 and a half, and the resin isn't mixed. You just give this about 2 minutes like this, and then we're ready to mix in our Cabasil. I've already mixed this off camera quite a bit, but it's ready to go. It's very well homogenized now. Now what I do is write out on a piece of newspaper, just lay out a spoonful. That's about all you'll need for a small mold like this. I'll move the camera so you can get a better view of this. Now Cabasil really is not happy mixing with epoxy in the beginning. So what I do is I pour a little bit right in the middle, the same way if you've ever mixed cement. And just keep putting the outside into the middle. And you're going to make a little bit of paste. And this is the paste that'll give you that real nice edge and corner. It'll have a nice professional look. Especially important on a wheel pant mold, a cowl mold, something that's going to have corners, edges, and angles. Now, rubber molding technology, I've written about this in Model Aviation, written about it in Stunt News. It's the thing it has going for it is you never lose the part or the mold. You really, if you do more than 30 cowls or 30 wheel pants, then you need some release agent. But for the majority of us modelers, we're not going to do more than 30. And if you were doing 30, then you could always just make an extra mold even. This is only about $30 worth of rubber on here. But what you want to do is get this paste right up in the corner. Now it's funny, I had somebody call me this morning, email me, and ask about, they were looking for a P40 kit. So I kind of turned them on to Joe Grasso. I hope that this is one of the, maybe get a kit sale out of it. Now you see how that builds up the corners? Up here we're not going to need it. But what's a nice trick, take a little extra, make it even a little bit thinner. These are the little things you don't see on these so-called professional videos that I've bought from molding companies. They always seem to leave out the part I really want to know. And I'm painting up on the edge here. Now keep in mind, this is just to give it a nice edge where it's going to be the break point of the edge. Okay, now we're ready to go. Now we can get rid of this newspaper, just move it over. To see what that would look like at that point in the layup. Now we can start taking our material.
one piece at a time. Until I do a few, I really don't know how many pieces and what the shape is going to be, but doing it in pie-shaped pieces on a complex mold always seems to give you the best choice. And we'll just add one piece at a time to this until we go around the whole perimeter. If you remember when we did the B25 cowling molds, we did them similar to this. Another trick would be, if you really want to have another option to do this, is you could lay it up with several layers of lighter cloth, or put one layer of real light cloth right in the end, right in the edge. Some people prefer that. I haven't found that to be real necessary. Okay, we get each one up in the corner. What I'm always amazed at is, like when Elliot Scott or Mike or Tom Hampshire, other people that have tried this for the first time out, they get a cowling. Now, another choice you have for anybody that really is interested, and we do have some people that really are trying to up these skills all the time, John Grigsby for one. One of the things that I really may help, needless to say, watch the video, ask questions. That's always a good way to do it. But then if you wanted me to make the mold, I'd be glad to do it for the cost of the rubber. And a rubber for this is about $50, $50. Because you really need more than a pound. You need 1.5 pounds. So you have to wind up buying a 10-pound pack. But the point is, when you're done, you have this unlimited supply. Now, in Rich Jacobone's case, we'll do his mold later today. He's going to build that plane maybe over and over and over. We don't know how many times, but now each time when I go to the second layer, I'll overlap the gaps so that no two are in the same spot. In fact, I'm going to need an extra piece right here. I made these just a little bit too thin, but I'll know on the next time to make them a little bit thicker. Now, one thing that was neat too, another little sidebar, I mean, there's a lot of little sidebars to life. I was able to use this molding technology, some similar technology, on my model railroad to make some bridge walls and abutments and parts for buildings and different things that, if I had to go out and buy these parts, well, you really need to buy or make one part, but then from that point on, you have a virtually unlimited supply of parts. A lot of times it's easier to push it in by hand. And now, the second time through, I'm going to get all the gaps overlapped. 2 layers is usually plenty. And if the part comes out a little heavy, needless to say, you can sand it with a Dremel tool, inside, outside, thin it out. You have an infinite amount of possibilities. If it was too thin, you can cover the whole thing with 1/2 ounce glass cloth, and add a layer that way. So you got a lot of choices, a lot of possibilities. Now notice I'm packing this down into the corner, because I'd like to see a nice, crisp, clean edge there if I possibly can. Let me get that in there. Now, the easy part. We want to just overlap each piece. So I know this is just about in the middle of this. Now the other objective is to use as little resin as possible. When you're done, you want the inner piece of cloth to be almost dry. You want to avoid the temptation to just pretty much slap on more and more resin. Because what happens at the end of it, it all winds up in the bottom as just a big puddle, and then you have to grind it away. So get a little bit nicer workmanship this way. Now, it's real important, I think it's important to get these gaps overlapped. I can see that I can modify this pattern. The pieces are too big, but when I cut these off, I'll save these scraps for some other job. In fact, Midgley's little cowling probably will use something similar to that. The nice thing about this technology too, as far as easy to learn, easy to do, West Systems resin has virtually no odor. It's really very, very easy to use, relatively non-toxic. All epoxy material, even 5-minute glue, has some toxicity. I need to mix up just a little more resin, so this is going to take just a little more than a 1 ounce mix of resin. So the next time through I'll mix 2 ounces. Then I don't have to go back in the middle of it and mix another ounce. Like this is the second mix. Keep in mind, it's a little bit of an advantage whenever you're mixing things to mix a small amount at a time. You don't have to use a new brush or a cup, but what that allows you to do, it gives you more working time. Again, in the beginning, you'd like to have as much working time. I would suggest you use the slow hardener. West makes 2 hardeners, slow and fast. The fast is for production work. We're not in that kind of a situation. I would prefer to have cold shop conditions, about 62 degrees in here most of the time. I like it cold because it gives me time, especially with the pipe resins, to work a little bit of extra time. Seems like you're always under the gun, or if the phone happens to ring in the middle of a layup, it's not a write-off. You don't have to throw the part away because you can't finish it. Now I'm going around the edge. And tomorrow when we come back to this will sit 24 hours. If you put it up by a heating vent, that'll kind of make it go a little quicker, but it still has to sit West resin has to sit 24 hours. I think this is going to be real nice when this is done. This will be a real nice part. And again, now we could fine-tune this in a lot of ways. We can pre-cut. I know how big the parts. I know I can cut smaller pieces. I just happen to have these cut for Rich's cowl. Now, because I have that extra resin mixed, I wasn't going to lay up Midgley's cowl. I'll lay up Midgley's cowl too. It has some very fancy cuts and angles. So doing the prototype one, again, I'll mix my paste. Just to give an example of a cowl shape like this, you need to get some Cabosil up here. There's other materials beside Cabosil you can use. You can use milled fibers, chopped fibers. There's about 10 other materials. They vary in cost. Cabosil seems to be the best I've found. It's a little more expensive than some of the others, but now in a place like this, we're going to want some reinforcement because it's going to be, the material's going to want to try to pull away from that front edge. So we're going to have to be real careful about how we lay that corner and angle up. Anyway, I'll do most of this off camera, and we'll look at all these molds. I think you get the general idea. I just wanted to try to include as many of the little, I guess, tips, things that'll give you a good chance of success the first time you try this. Again, I wish when I started this 7 years ago that somebody would have made me my own video, because I bought several videos and every one of them left out key steps, key parts, and it just took me longer. If you go back around 95 when I was doing the experimental ones, what a disaster some of them were, but you eventually, if you're persistent, you'll eventually figure it out. And you always have my phone number, which, whatever that's worth. Anyway, we'll relay the rest of these up, and then we'll look at them tomorrow and see which ones need improving and which ones need some final adjustments. All 3 of our cowls are going to have to dry overnight. We got a batch of pipes here. And what I thought I'd do, I'd spend a little bit of time tonight. I've been working an hour or 2 every night on my model railroad, of course. And I want to make what amounts to be a coal loading ramp here for unloading coal cars. I'm going to try to make it all out of balsa wood, just as a little project. I have plenty of balsa wood. It'll be fun to see how it comes out. And if it doesn't come out, it's just relaxing time in the evening.
Well, one of the things I've considered doing, I wanted to see how practical this was, is making some of these model railroading accessories out of balsa wood and maybe making some molds. I'm not sure. But I know for sure somewhere in the future we're going to be adding to our product line here. Anyway, this is kind of a coal ramp. It's got to be finished, painted. The railroad products all get painted with a paint called Flow Quill, a very dull paint, and airbrushed, weathered. Anyway, and I have a couple other ideas. I was going to try to do some ink lines in white ink on there to represent rivet heads. Well, we'll see when I get to finish it tomorrow.
In today's mail, we got a picture of James Mills's son, and according to James's note, he's ready to enter the Nationals right now. James is priming him to be the junior national champion this year. Anyway, hey, we gave Jim some good advice on renovating his bathroom, and now his toilet doesn't flush. I don't know. Jim, I try my best, can I tell you? Anyway. Well, after all that work, this is what our Kajeski pole ramp looks like. Made out of old balsa wood. I even use Letrasets to do a lot of its siding. Kajeski pole. Mike will truly be impressed. And of course, we're going to detail the parking lot out with some coal piles and some trucks, different things like that. It was a lot of fun to make, very easy. You could use up all your 10-pound balsa wood. You don't even need to use up good balsa wood to do it. We'll be getting plenty of coal cars so that we can get coal up in there. Made a lake on here. Of course, we're not done with the scenery yet. Using epoxy, and what's nice is as the train goes by, it reflects into the lake. Pretty cool. I think that's so nice how the train reflects in that little pond that we made. It's kind of a cool thing. Anyway, we're having fun up here every night for a couple hours. The railroad's coming along better than I ever thought it would. And we're going to have that dedicated video ready very soon on 2 hours of how we actually put this whole thing together. This is Ed Captainelli's Cavalier. This came in today's mail. Looks like a nice caption shot for possibly being on the cover of Stunt News or one of the color pages. Beautiful photography work from Ed Captainelli in Tucson. So here at the end of, pulled out our first test pieces for Dave's mold. First one of the P40s out of the mold. And the first one of Rich's Stukas. That's a very big and very complex mold. I reinforced it with some carbon. So there's just one little scenario of something you can do to add to your enjoyment of the world of model planes. Not difficult to do, not too expensive, and certainly a real upgrade on, well, in my book, in my head, it's a big upgrade over balsa wood, and that's for sure. So my wonderful wife, Karen, is filling orders here and doing email for me, and she brings home a box of Juji fruits, and all of a sudden I notice somebody scammed up a Juji fruit. Hey! Hey, did you steal that Juji fruit? Look at this. Forensic evidence. You stole that Juji fruit. You want a Juji fruit? You could have one. You don't have to steal it. What a bird. Okay, Richard's number 2 cowling is in the mold right now. Dave's number 2. And we'll be ready later this week. The material will be in to make the mold for the fuselage.
Juji fruit face?
Did he steal any more Juji fruits?
I'm not letting him near there.
No! Yeah, Juji. Look at him. He's like a vulture. He's dying to steal Juji fruits. Hey! Watch, he's on the floor, Kara. Yeah, now Freddie's got a Juji fruit. He's eating Juji fruits.
What?
What'd you do to this bird? Jack-a-bone shows up and the bird's going to bite him. Look at this, the bird's going to kill him. I don't like Richard Jack-a-bone, he builds Stukas. I don't like Jack-a-bone at all.
Look at him.
He's letting you pet him, isn't he? No, Freddie Fuqua, look at this. Look at him, he's more friendly to you than to me. Hey, look, he's falling asleep. He's going to fall on the floor. You know, he fell on the floor before.
Look at his paw.
He's going to fall. Karen, he's hypnotizing the bird. Look at this. I never saw him do this before. Oh, Stuka man over
Look at
here.
this.
He's got the bird hypnotized. Look.
He's got the paw, or the claw, whatever. Look at his claw.
Oh, you're
what
something
he did.
else.
Boy,
He bit you?
Yeah, he bit me.
Well, you deserve it, you dumpy thing. Let's see what you got. All right, Richard's first cowling. He's coming up. He's got his $100 bill jumping out of his pocket already. He's ready to go. Big
Another
cowling.
100?
Enough. Every time I see you, it's $100. All right, let's see what you got. This will be one of 3. I'm going to make them 3. Now, what was the problem with this?
Well, I'm not.
This is the new
This
Stuka.
is different than the rest of the plane,
Okay.
and I'm not happy
All
with
right,
the
it's
way
a
it
flat
looks.
tail.
See?
It's dry. You need more clear. Yeah,
It
you
is?
see what this is? Let me try to get it. See the dark spots?
Yeah.
It's dry.
Is that what it is? Because actually, the rest of it is good. It's just
It's probably a good weight, too. I'll weigh it
here.
before
Look.
you go.
See this?
Give another coat of clear. Don't even sand this off. Put a coat of clear on it.
See?
Yeah, see, you didn't put enough paint on it, that's all.
Is that what it is? Well, I was concerned about weight because you made me paranoid.
Yeah, well, but you are paranoid.
Oh, look.
Put another coat of dope on it.
See?
This is a dry spot. See? So just put more dope.
clear
Now
on?
see what this is here? This is a bubble. See right here? Put that on the table. You know the old trick. Let me show this up on the tape. You get a bubble up here like this.
Then you put CA on it, right? Yeah.
You just take and put a million little pinholes, put thin CA on it. Man, I've even showed you this trick. Now this spot here, see this dry spot?
Right.
Sand it a little bit, put the thin CA on it. That'll do the same
Yeah.
thing.
Put CA on top
Little
of
CA will seal it. So you got a dry spot there.
And over here too?
Yeah. Where it's, yeah, right here. That's good. Sand it, put the thin CA and wipe it with a Q-tip. But put a coat of clear on the whole thing. Where's the elevators?
I didn't bring them.
Oh, okay.
The elevators are fine. This is stupid thing.
But this is just because it doesn't have enough paint on it.
Okay. No, it's straight.
No, it's straight as an arrow. It's fine.
Over here, I have a little fraction of a bolt.
That won't matter. That's nonsense.
But it
As soon
was
as you put it
straight
out in the
originally.
sun, it won't be any
Well, that's
straighter
the
than
thing,
that anyway.
It was straight, and all of a sudden, I sprayed the silver on it. Boom. You know. All right. So therefore, it's salvageable.
No, that's going to be fine. That's the oldest trick in the book, doing that thing with the thin CA.
But I
That's
have to give it more clear.
more clear. Yeah, when you see dry spots, those dark, especially when you sand it,
So
you'll know right
What
away.
you're saying is not to sand it, but just put more clear on
Put a
it.
coat of clear on, let it dry overnight, put a coat of silver on, and it probably will go. And if it doesn't, sand it
Do you
again.
want me to brush it, or do you want?
No, spray it. Spray it. 50-50, yeah. It's actually, today's a good day to spray. It's not bad out there right now.
I'm not going to be able to do that. I have to go to the nursing home. I'm telling you.
Right, but that's worth looking at, because
Yeah,
that's a whole lot better than that one you made that was 200 grams or whatever it was.
that's a good way.
Now, today we finished up and had post-cured another batch. These are a batch that are going down to Richard. These have the stinger, and you can see the reason I want to show this. Some have the stinger that you don't need the little rubber piece on it, and some have the option that you can have the rubber piece. So we can make pipes, obviously we've been making custom pipes for a long time, but now you can buy production ones that have the stinger in either location, either from me or from Richard. We have them in stock all the time, and we can ship them out the same day. Plane like Miss Ashley, with a fuselage is thin in the back, I prefer having the exhaust stick out the back like that, rather than having that rubber, let's call it the rubber ducky for lack of a better word. I never did care for the way they looked either. So that's a significant little change, and I hope that'll help people custom fit the pipe into whatever plane. We always like to include our little home projects on the video. We wanted to move this closet back. Of course, this is where the train layout is. Problem was, we decided we're just going to get rid of the whole closet, which will give us a little seating area here. And Mike is making us, he's in the middle of making us a cedar closet in here. Of course, it's nice and airy in here. All cedar lined closet by the Closet King. He used to own coal mines. It used to be Kajeski Coal. Now it's Kajeski Closet Company. That looks great. It needed a new self-leveling doors. You just snap them up. Now the truth is, Mike's going to tell us the truth. This is a $400 door. And it didn't fit, so we had to cut it in half. What a job getting it realigned. Thank God we have high technicians of high caliber here to do it.
I'm telling you.
Oh, these Spitfires, I got to dust everything off. I'll tell you, when Mike does a job, though, it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. Just one of our other little projects we're working on here. And at the end of day one, the first coat of spackle's drying, the Spitfires are spitting, and we can't wait. We're actually going to wind up doing a whole reorg on the whole Spitfire bedroom. When this is done, Mikey really, as always, a primo job for our Spitfire bedroom. And once we get this done, of course, then the next step is, we already have the doors ripped off the closet. We're going to rip that whole closet out. Now today we finished up Joe's order. We started with his plug, the original plug, and we've wound up with a finished part, ready to install on a plane. Now, the things we can do from this point on, now that we've made a part, if Joe were to say, well, we want these parts made out of a much lighter material, well, for about double the price, you could make them out of carbon, but there's very little reason to unless you're building a ultra competition plane. You also could make it out of Kevlar. Material would be relatively expensive, hard to cut, hard to trim. So a good choice here was using the E-glass, using the West Systems resin, made for a very nice part, a part that's reasonable in price, relatively, I would say relatively, yeah, anybody I think could make this part. Duplicatable by modelers with almost anything but the lowest of modeling skills. Could probably pick this up from the information on the video, and we're going to send Joe a copy of this video just so he can see what goes into making this. If he'd like to have any other parts made, we'd certainly be willing to make it for him. Anyway, back to our shop projects. Took the first couple of Stuka cowls. I wanted them to have one to go fit on the plane, and what we did, we made one up with a carbon reinforcement where his screws are going to be, and a carbon reinforcement, which I think we'll call it a nose wheel in case he decides to do one of his landings that he comes through on the front. Anyway, this mold worked out very well, even though there was a lot of molding rubber in it. Mold is right here is finished already. The part that comes out of that mold. And one of the next steps, as soon as the material arrives, we're waiting for some material to arrive. We're going to make up the mold for the fuselage. And in a week or two, Dave is going to be down here to lay up a wing and a fuselage, hopefully for his all-carbon fiber airplane. He also has the flaps and elevators already, the molds machined out of aluminum, so with that level of tooling, just like our tank tooling, when you have that quality of tooling, the parts are almost always perfect right away. A lot of projects, a lot of things. We're going to work on that closet up in the attic over the weekend. And of course, it snowed again. So the poor B-25 here, I'm glad he's in the hangar, not outside in that snow. Well, this has been one of the roughest winters, and between me being sick and Les having problems and George's brother dying, we've just all gone to hell in a handbasket here. I forget the A-26 wing. Mike Costello should be here one day this week if he can break away from work. See, he's caught up in making a lot of money, so he never wants to take a day off work. But his wing is ready to do the joints. He's got it all sanded out. And we just have got enough projects to choke on here. But this is the fun of doing this stuff. I would never want to get up in the morning and have nothing to do. Having a lot of projects to work on, having various different planes to fly, 2 strokes, 4 strokes, pipes, twins, O-gauge railroads, and of course the most fun of all, painting Karen's closet. I can't wait to do that. Well, in today's mail we got a nice set of photos from Steve Greneau. Steve Greneau lives in Pensacola, Florida, my birthplace. Now the unfortunate thing is, even though this is a nice set of pictures of his fly-in site and some of his models, one of the things he didn't send was the captions for the photos. But I'm going to assume that this is the new clipped wing version, and I'm going to assume that this is Steve building a new wing. I'm not sure. I guess we all have this need to repair things once they crash. Anyway, there's a nice shot here I wanted to show of Steve's model shop, now in Florida, of course. Don't need the winter insulation like we have here. A couple of nice smaller models. Some kind of a little, I'm trying to figure out what that is, a little thing to hold the models. That's probably what was back here in this photo back here. See, he didn't send, yeah, to hold the model. The thing is, he didn't send any captions, but that's okay, and we'll try to get some of these into Stunt News. Anyway, Steve, thanks a whole lot, and keep Pensacola a great place to be born. Now today I got an email order from Doug Moon. He's building a copy of Miss Ashley, and we've invited him to, like Richard Oliver, to come up for our spring meet and fly our Miss Ashley, see if he can pick up any useful information from that. Now one of the things we're able to do now, because we have a mold for the exhausts, we have a mold for the valve covers, the Griffin valve covers, and we have a mold for the scoops on the plane. We're able to make him a nice set of hardware where he doesn't have to make the molds. This is what's nice about molding technology. Now we're able to mold, since we still have the mold, we can mold that scoop, we can mold the valve covers, mold the little exhausts, and he can have all of those parts. That'll save probably, well, a few hours. And again, congratulations to Doug Moon on a great top 5 finish. We hope he buys a pair of white pants for next year. And we hope if he does win the Nats, that they grab Bob Gieske and give him a big lip kiss, give him a big tongue kiss. Among our molding projects, of course, this is what's nice about having a mold. We just reach into the box, prep the mold. We're able to lay these parts up for Doug, and we can get them in. Actually, we can get them in tomorrow's mail. We have another little molding project here that's kind of fun. It's a fun project I'm doing for my friend Arnie Haber. This is the roof to a Lionel accessory, and you can see what's happened. Because these have never been reproduced, they're completely very hard to find. In fact, these are almost impossible to find intact. What you do find is you find them like this, with pieces missing because they've been abused by children or people like me that have rough hands. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make Arnie up a rubber mold of this side of the part. And then what I'm going to do is take this part out of the mold, put this part in the mold, and fill this with resin and Cabasol, that mix that, like we mix it for each part we do. And we're going to try to repair some of these old Lionel parts. And I don't know if these are going to be successful, but if they're not, it only costs us the $30 to make the mold. From what I understand, the roofs alone are worth about $110 each when they're intact and don't have any chips out of them. Arnie also had one of our local body shop people, John Norton, mix him up some special paint for this, and we're going to be airbrushing, trying to replicate the original factory finish. So that's a fun project. In fact, we'll do this later on today. First thing we'll do is get Doug's little parts made up for him and get them shipped out to him, because it'll be great to have 2 Miss Ashleys at this year's Nats. There ever was one defining feature of Miss Ashley other than the contra props, and this whole nose section I thought was just such an incredibly nice thing to model. And I'm glad, I hope Doug's is going to be even better than mine. We'll see if we get 2 of them out there at this year's Nats. So our master plan is to fly the B-25 at Brodax and at the Nats, but you never do know. You know, this is an experimental plane. There's a lot of things that can happen between now and the Nats, and it's really a comforting thing to have last year's plane intact, trimmed, handle trimmed, tank shimmed, actually flown by several other people, including Rich Oliver. So we know it's in basic good trim, and if we do have some reason not to fly the B-25, and we certainly hope that the B-25 is going to make it to the Nats, we not only have Miss Ashley, we also have the Typhoon, and we have 3 Spitfires upstairs. So I think we're pretty much ready for this year's Nats, as well as the possibility that once Les is over his commitment to taking care of his woman Babette, what we really need to do, and she's had a serious lung operation, by the way. So we expect probably in 2 or 3 weeks he'll be back in the shop, and we'll be cranking full steam ahead on our 40 project. Making this mold, I don't really have a lot of high hopes for this. Anytime you make, and I wanted to put this on the video, anytime you make a reverse mold where the part is, the air bubbles are rising up into the part, usually you wind up with air bubbles in the part. But because this is just a repair part, we're not trying to make the whole part, this may or may not work. Now, what I did, I tried to make it like a boat so I could float it, because I don't want to seal this part. This is a collector's part, something that can't be replaced easily if I destroy it. So I just let it float in there like a boat, and I'm just going to put just enough weights in the middle of this that it floats evenly, hopefully, to all sides. And if it doesn't work, we're really just out the $30 for the molding rubber. We're not out of major problem here, but if it does work, we should be able to repair some of these parts, well, hopefully in the future, and return a favor to Arnie, who's been a real good friend, helped us out with our train layout in a lot of ways. And we'll see tomorrow when this dries. Show this again. If you ever have to make a mold, and let's say this is the shape of the part, just for sake of argument, well, the nicest thing to do is, of course, build a mold around it, and this is choice 1. Pour in the molding rubber, and this is the part that in the very beginning, if you go back to the Spitfire videos, you'll see I had so much trouble figuring out what was going wrong. The air bubbles are always going to rise. So what happens, as they rise, here they are, they all wind up at the top. Well, now, in the case of this part, we can't do that. I can't attach. The way this is, I can't, because it doesn't have a flat surface, I can't attach this part to the table realistically. I would have to make a very involved mold, and I don't want to do that. But one of the choices here is a couple little tips that'll help you if you have to resort to this. If you have to fill a tub with molding rubber, which is what I had to do right now, and then immerse a wheel pant or a part in it, where the air bubbles are going to come up to the top. There's a little bit of a way you can beat the system. What you do is you paint the part with molding rubber. Let it cure a little bit, 15-20 minutes, then pour the whole batch of rubber. Let the rubber gas off and get all the air bubbles out of it, or most of them. You can use a hair dryer, a vibrator, anything that'll shake it, get the air bubbles out, and then immerse the part that's already coated and let it kind of float in there. Now that just seems to be a good trick, possibly that somebody else could pick up off the video. I'm not sure, but, and again, because this is an experimental part, and we're just trying to do a small repair here, it may be that this mold will be good enough even with the parts. But again, it's just something we want to try, and I know there are a lot of people experimenting with these kind of mold parts. Well, this is just one of the tricks that you can use if you're developing your own little system. Neat little trick to get the part to float to exactly the right height, like a boat. I filled a cup with water and just kept taking little bits of water out until it floated. And it seems like that would be a pretty easy thing, but it took me longer than I thought to figure out how to get it to float nice and evenly. Just varying the amount of water, I can vary how high the part sits in the molding rubber. And I hope some of these tricks pan out, some of them help you or inspire you or whatever. We've certainly enjoyed all the little adventure.
Today is Valentine's. Actually, tomorrow is Valentine's Day. Chicky and I have a special prize. It just came via FedEx, and we're going to wait for Karen to get home very soon. We got a card for her, but check the size of this doll out. This doll's almost as big as I am. Anyway, this is her Valentine present. She wanted fresh flowers on the table. She wanted a doll for Valentine's Day, so let's just see when she gets home if she enjoys it. It's an early Valentine morning. We wake up, I have a nice little gift. Let's see, chocolate.
Chocolate is only part of your gift.
We'll make and let's see how big your gift is. Oh, it's the size of a house.
Are you getting a locomotive?
We don't talk about that. Come on, let's see what this dolly looks like. Dolly's been sitting in the box freezing. Outside it's 10 degrees, there's snow on everything, but the dolly's warm. We record things as they really are. Oh, it's romantic. You're supposed to love me on Valentine's Day.
Stop. Oh my God. Oh my God, she's stunning. She's big.
Well, come on, everybody wants to see what you got.
Oh, look at her.
She's as big as you are.
Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, she's beautiful.
Carbon fiber, too.
She's elegant. Oh, I love her.
All right, let's take her out.
You can help taking her out. This is a task.
Don't drop her.
Look at that gorgeous face.
Now, what did... Let me see her.
She's stunning.
She's like the B-25 of dolls.
She's beautiful.
But you know what this means?
What?
That you better be very nice to your loving husband in the future. A husband that loves you this much, you're not going to find him in some five and dime store, you know.
Only in the Sears parking lot.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day,
Thank you,
baby.
sweetie. Oh, she is gorgeous. They cut this off.
Now, some of my other friends, among my other friends, I won't mention any names, one of them bought his wife a Mustang. One bought his wife a BMW.
No kidding. And
But-
I got a doll.
I think you got the better of the deal.
I'm much happier.
I think you got the better of the deal here, baby.
Oh, I love
Happy Valentine's Day. Well, we get up this morning and we're looking at another big storm coming for the next 2 days. It looks like just one more delay in our program. We are just getting so used to having delay after delay, unexpected delays. And today's definitely going to be. Today we tried, and you can see what we did. We mixed up some epoxy. This is in the mold, and we're going to see if this part, it's going to sit overnight under the pressure of a gallon of Brodag dope, holding it in a female mold. And again, we know we can't make this side of the mold, and because this is just a repair job, we're hoping that that's going to come out, that our friend Arnie Haber can use that as one of the things on his train layout. And since these parts are so expensive and pretty difficult to find out on the internet, they're about $120 when they're in good shape. This gives you a serviceable part for, if somebody can send me the part, I'll do it for nothing. Well, not for nothing, but for a pizza. Anyway. Jacobone picked up his 3 Stuka cowlings. He's as happy as can be with them. We're going to see how that looks. Probably get over to his shop later this week and see how he did the fitting of it. We're hoping very soon, maybe this spring or summer, to have the final B-25 plans available. And in today's mail, and every once in a while, I just get bowled over, knocked over, and I'm speechless. And as we speak right now, everybody knows I've made 3 of these ships. I've actually made 2 fuselages, 2 separate wings, but they've comprised 3 separate ships altogether, one of which is in England, 2 of them are in the United States. I think Doug Moon is in the middle of building one, but I'm not sure. Several people have bought the plans to it, so we're kind of excited about it. We've always been a fan of Miss Ashley, and this is the world's first that I know of one-piece carbon fiber wing, not plug-in wings, one-piece carbon fiber wing. We're eventually going to have a second one, and that's the material for the second one that Dave Midgley will be building off a different set of molds. But I opened up the mail today, and like I said, there's every once in a while I get so emotional and speechless when I get something like this that I'm almost ready to cry. In fact, Karen, when we opened the mail today, because we're snowed in basically, she said I ought to frame this. And let me show you what came in the mail today. Now this is from our friend Dick Alley. Now you just look at this real close for a second, and you're going to notice something. This is the real Miss Ashley. The late Miss Ashley. On the landing gear leg, and several of the Reno Air Racers, they give credit to people that volunteer to work or have done work or made special parts. Dick Alley was one of those people. I'm going to read this. Dated February 8th, 2003. Wendy, first of all, congratulations on your first place win at the Brodak meet last summer with Miss Ashley. Several of the people that were on the Miss Ashley 2 team, including myself, are modelers, and that's a very common thing, and are aware of your project. Your activities that keep the memory of Miss Ashley 2 alive are appreciated. I have included some memorabilia as a token of our appreciation. There are 2 information handout sheets. The first one shows the original Mustang-style radiator, and I'll just show these up close. We have 2 of these. These are handouts for the original one. But let me pick this up. I'm a little choked up. The second one shows the NCAA flush inlet. I designed for the radiator that was installed in the summer of '99. There is also a picture of me under the wing. We've shown that picture of MA2. The book advertisement shows a book on the history of the Griffin-powered racers. If you haven't gotten one yet, I encourage you to consider it. It gives an excellent description of the evolution of MA2. About the t-shirt, and I'm going to show this t-shirt up close. About the t-shirt, the crew shirts were only issued to bona fide members of the race team crew, and their possession was jealously guarded. To my knowledge, this is the only one given to a non-crew member. It is one of my personal shirts. I hope the size large fits. I'll make it fit. I have discussed this with Bill Rogers, the designer and owner of MA2, and he agrees it is appropriate for you to have one. I plan to attend the Vintage Stunt Championships in Tucson, and he asked whether I should be there. Now, this is the part I almost cried when I saw this. I found this one, XL. He knows I'm a fat boy. This was a working shirt. The grease spots are genuine MA2 grease. Like I said, it's not often I really get choked up over something. Let me back up a little bit, but Karen and I were both almost in tears. This is a real, and I will plan to save this. I don't think I'll be wearing this to the field where it can get all gizzed up. You see there's grease spots on it? Yeah. I mean, this is a collector's item, and it's a real crew shirt. Levitz Rogers Unlimited Race Team. So after all these years, I finally become an official part of the Levitz Rogers Unlimited Racing Team. And trust me when I tell you, this will be a treasured possession. And I will not be washing it. This will stay just as I received it. I'm going to send Dick a copy of this video for his own personal enjoyment, and he can share it with everybody. And one of our B-25 flying, which has turned out to be the world sales leader here, and we have plenty of extra copies. I'm absolutely blown away. Very few things, believe me, come into the league with this. This is a real crew shirt. I'm only sorry that I'm not a better pilot, that I could have won the Nats or something with the plane, or something that would have... Well, we won Brodax twice, so... Twice? I don't even know how many times. We won a few times anyway. Besides the point. But that is really something. I am just speechless. And even though we're snowed in and I'm working on a lot of boring projects, this made a very dull day very bright. Thank you so much. To me, it's always funny, and this really has very little to do with model aviation. It's really funny to me how some of the things, you live a life in real time, you live it, and sometimes you never really realize where you're headed, where you're going, where the road is going to take you. Sometimes you think you're going left and you're going right, you're going forward, but you're really going backward. You really never know. In my case, I always thought the original Miss Ashley, and this you can denote it by seeing the different lettering on the wing, and we tried to copy the real lettering from the real plane. But one of the things that doing any semi-scale project like this is you try to make that invisible connection to the real, whether it's a bomber or whether it's a Miss Ashley, a Reno Racer, a Strega, whatever. Now sometimes the connection in our case, you know, there'll never be, as far as I know, another Miss Ashley. It won't be a Miss Ashley 3. Maybe there will be, I don't know it, but if there is, we'll certainly make a model of it. Sometimes you can take one moment in time, just one in your whole life. There's one split-second, split moment of time that defines your whole life. Well, this is Sleepy Dawson giving Miss Ashley a launch on what became its winning flight, but for us, I guess losing the real plane was just such a tragedy that our accomplishments are somehow just a little bit smaller. But like I said, I'm choked up having that shirt. I guess you can hear it in my voice. It is an absolute honor. I will treasure it always. Well, we are just totally snowed in. This is the third day of snow, and we're just starting to get shoveled out to where we're going to get some of our tapes out into the mail and get caught up on our orders. But this is probably the last time you're going to see the Spitfire bedroom on video. We have decided to renovate this whole room, and I guess a lot of people have said, you know, gee whiz, how many other people have a compressor in their bedroom? Anyway, what I've done, I've tried to rearrange this, and this, it sounds like this wouldn't be an important thing. You know what? It is an important thing. What we did is we made this, Mike Kajeski actually made this cedar-lined closet that now is part of the room. So when we have guests stay over, which is pretty much all the time, they can keep the Spitfires and Seafires company. But what it did, it allowed us to rip the closet out of this room and look at the viewing area. Now we're going to buy some stools. Look at the viewing area we have now. Mike Kajeski did this whole job. Fabulous, fabulous job. And I've put out some of the old collector trains, the old cattle car, and some of the old things from my childhood. Boy, these were the things that when I was a kid, boy oh boy, if you had Lionel trains, you were the king. This is a little trolley car that Karen got me for Christmas one year. Some of this little track cleaning car Jim Damarell made a gift years ago. We treasure all these things. But what that did for us now is look at the size when you stand back here and you view what amounts to be our O-gauge train layout. you get a whole different view of things. And because we have a dedicated website that'll be to handle all our train video sales, we're going to start expanding into that area very soon. We have really enjoyed working on this as a sidebar, and what it did, it carried us through this time, and I'm not sure you really can see it on the video. Les Demet was out of the shop, and we didn't want to work on our half of the project without him. We wanted to work with him since it's his design. And so we've used that time to have Mike Kajeski build us this great room, which he's done. And now it's expanded our enjoyment of the world of O-gauge trains. When Mike Costello comes over, or anybody, you can see the reflection in the lake. And we've made an honorary mention of Kajeski Coal on the coal ramp. Today we're going to start on Dave's mold for the fuselage. We have our helper here from Oslo, Norway. Flies in the 747 in a snowstorm just so I can have him shovel my driveway. What a thrill seeing Windy, huh? Well, the first thing is now we're going to put 4 coats of part all high temperature wax about an hour apart. I'll get one coat on, and of course we'll go have some coffee, come back, do another coat. I found out many times by the waxing part of it, if you put all 4 coats on one right after another, not as good as if you give it an hour. And again, I'll look at my watch, carefully take an hour, do a thorough buffing off. A lot of times what's wrong with the waxing operation is you put it on and take it and you don't get all the wax off. The most important part of the wax is to get it all off. If you wind up with a big slurry of wax and big lumpy spots, the finish of the mold doesn't come out as nice as it should. So the first coat here, and Ingolf has decided to wax it for me while I go have coffee. I don't think so. Any more than Chickie's going to wax it, huh? All right, so the first thing, we'll get a coat of wax on this. We'll get 4 coats an hour apart. That was nice having a visit with you. We got the PVA on. This is going to have to dry overnight. Now, normally, what I would do is I would want to have at least 3 or 4 coats on, as they clearly explain on the label. What I found is if you put too much on, it's worse than having not enough, so I'm kind of favoring not having as much as I've used in the past. We also have, I've laid out all of the resins and things, and I'll have to go over this again because we're going to need about 3 gallons of resin. I have 2.5. Hope that's going to be enough. Quarts of hardener, a bunch of cloth, and on the next tape we're going to try to lay out the mold on this the next time we get. The problem is you need a whole day to work on this without interruption. You can't be in the middle of it and start answering phone calls and doing other things, so I try to dedicate either a late night or an early morning to doing the mold. On the next tape we're going to do the mold, and we're really near the end of the tape right now. Dave's plug looks like it's going to make a fine mold. Again, we'll find out when we're done. Every one of these molds is like a separate entity, and I always look forward to seeing how they come out. And each time we learn something, we build into the database, we learn more and more for the next, which applies to the next. We're constantly learning more and more about this process of molding fuselages and wings and tails. And I think Dave, I'm not sure, has the flap mold and some of the other things which probably be real interesting. So looking forward to his visit, looking forward to getting this mold finished. We're at the end of this tape, and I hope you've enjoyed it and picked up some good information. And we certainly, we are in one of the craziest winters of our whole life here. the A26 project on the back burner so that Mike Costello could get caught up with us. He's working on his wing today, in fact. And we're going to have to put the dihedral brake. I didn't want to get too far ahead of him, and I didn't want to work on Les's project, the 40 ship, while Les is out of the shop. And we expect within a week or two he'll be back in the shop. Dave will be here. Elliot will be here. And most of all, what I really hope is the flying season will be here really soon. So stay warm. Hope you enjoyed the video. Share it with all your friends. We're going to be doing some more work on a Spitfire bedroom, maybe some more work on that train layout, depending on what time is available. But there's a lot of projects. This is certainly, in my case, one of the busiest winters I've ever had. And as much as I like the winter and the building season, boy, I've had enough snow, and I'm really looking forward to the flying season.
My